So meditation is training the conscious mind.
Meditation is developing and, in a way, extending the conscious mind, bringing conscious awareness to the usually conscious things, to my thinking process, to my intellectual thinking, reasoning, etc. But as just mentioned, also in a way bringing the light of awareness into the darkness of the subconscious mind. So I'm in a way extending the territory of my iceberg. From just the tip of the iceberg, I try to dig deeper and, in a way, explore the depth also of my inner being. And in this way, I bring conscious awareness to usually subconscious tendencies.
Action!
Welcome to the Spirit of Yoga. We are Kirsten
And Burkhard
from the Akasha Yoga Academy. Today, we'll dive deeply into the topic of the potential of human consciousness. And I'm very excited to talk to Burkhard, who is a psychologist. So he has quite a perspective on the Western idea of what consciousness is, human consciousness is. And of course, as a yogi, there is an Eastern perspective on consciousness, and that brings an add-on that's quite different from what we deal with in the West. Burkhard, let's hop right in. Western psychology, what's the spectrum of human consciousness?
In this short episode, we'll just touch base on some of the headlines, and the Western consciousness model is mostly summarized by the headlines of the conscious and the subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. And that actually has been already explored centuries ago on basics, but brought into the foreground by the famous Sigmund Freud and his psychoanalysis, with the famous iceberg metaphor, that the conscious mind, as we meet it and see it, is actually just the tip of the iceberg above the water. And then the greater part, maybe even up to 90% of our mind, are actually subconscious underwater. And we don't really know exactly so clearly what is happening in this lower part of the iceberg, or as Freud was also giving the metaphor, in our basement. We got quite some dark stuff stored there, but also beneficial and uplifting tendencies, ingredients, habits, as well as, in a way, also our instincts. Many of them, Freud would also relate to the subconscious mind.
So if we classify our actions, activities, thoughts, is it that you could say the rational mind is the conscious mind and the patterns is the subconscious mind? Or how does that apply? Like, what does that mean? When do I meet my subconscious mind?
One of the most obvious ones where we meet the subconscious mind is the dreams. So that would be the standard example for the subconscious mind. And it's not a coincidence that Sigmund Freud, in his psychoanalysis, was very big on the dream analysis. That was one of the main modalities to access the subconscious mind and then to interpret the meaning, the significance of the dreams. So, small side note on that one. We are dreaming actually every night a lot in the REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. Even if we don't remember the dreams, we are still dreaming, and it's a very important processing where the integration happens in the nighttime. All what we experience in the conscious wakefulness then gets integrated in the nighttime in the subconscious mind. And then Sigmund Freud gave his approach of how to interpret the meaning and significance of the symbolism in the dreams. But even apart from that, and even if we don't remember the dreams, we can acknowledge that the subconscious mind has a big role also in memory building and in handling our instincts, our, in a way, drives for the sexuality. Procreation is a standard topic in the dreams coming up. Many of the themes which we don't process on the surface, which we don't allow ourselves, they can be suppressed out of the conscious into the subconscious mind.
But what is the subconscious mind? Is it a storehouse of our life? experiences, or is it
Yeah,
more like a collective consciousness? What is the
interesting.
subconscious
Yeah,
mind? Like,
both,
what is
both
it?
and
Where
more.
do I get that stuff from in my subconscious mind, and where is it, and what is it full with?
Yeah, both and more. So it is in many ways a memory. So that is also one common interpretation and understanding of the subconscious mind, that it is like a storehouse where all of our conscious and subconscious experiences get in a way saved and connected, integrated, and then also with emotional charges interpreted, made sense of, matching the different patterns and lot of childhood experiences, of course, the years and decades we had in our younger years, the experiences we made there, the patterns and habits installed by our parents, by school, society, teachers, etc. What we learned from media, all this repetition. So the subconscious mind is then, of course, jumping on the repeated input, and the memory forms in kind of like a hardwiring in the background of the subconscious mind. So a lot of it is related then, well, how we meet it, that was your previous question, how we meet it in daily life is our automatic autopilot reactions, our reactivity. Then it's how we kind of, when we don't think about it, but still we are acting on this autopilot mode. In a way, the habits and patterns of the past are expressing it themselves. They're kind of acting through me, and sometimes I cannot even stop that.
And that is only my personal old
Exactly.
life.
That was your second part of the question. Up to now, we spoke very much about the individual aspect of it, and yes, Sigmund Freud and his fundamentals of the psychoanalysis was very much emphasizing on the individual part.
Mhm.
But then the foremost student of Sigmund Freud was the famous Carl Gustav Jung, C.G. Jung. And he actually brought the collective subconscious very much in the foreground and was emphasizing on these patterns of society, of culture, being also from the learning, from the patterns, from our parents, from the neighbors, from school, from media, how the collective belief systems and tendencies get, in a way, instilled, installed also in our own operating system. So Carl Jung was the famous, in a way, popularizer of this collective subconsciousness. And then he went deeper also into the mythology, into the symbolism, the archetypes, which he found across the cultures. So he found then cross cultural evidence of this collective subconscious.
So basically, I'm walking around with my conscious mind and with my subconscious mind, and sometimes my subconscious mind leads the way, and sometimes the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is what? The rational thinking?
Yeah, that is pretty clear that the intellectual, rational clarity is usually associated with the conscious mind, but it is not just the thinking, planning mind which is conscious, but as we will explore in a moment, going also into the perspective of awareness, we can become present. We can become aware of whatever is happening in this moment. And in yoga and meditation, we do that a lot also with sensory perceptions. So bringing our conscious awareness to sensory input, which we are receiving through the sensual sense gates, as they are called, the gates through which we are allowing outside information to come in. So that frequently happens under the radar, and I don't notice most of those things going on consciously, but I can develop more refined conscious awareness and notice a wider spectrum. And in this way, it's in a way the first step to bring conscious awareness to usually subconscious tendencies or inputs, for example.
So meditation is training the conscious mind.
Meditation is developing and, in a way, extending the conscious mind, bringing conscious awareness to the usually conscious things, to my thinking process, to my intellectual thinking, reasoning, etc. But as just mentioned, also in a way bringing the light of awareness into the darkness of the subconscious mind. So I'm in a way extending the territory of my iceberg. From just the tip of the iceberg, I try to dig deeper and in a way explore the depth also of my inner being. And in this way, I bring conscious awareness to usually subconscious tendencies.
And two steps back, what is mind?
What is the mind? So there we have different perspectives also in the West and in the East. So in the West, we very much find this association of the individual mind with the central nervous system. So that is a key in neurobiology and most of psychological research that in the mainstream understanding, the mind is very much associated with the brain and the rest of the central nervous system in the spine, and then maybe the peripheral nervous system, the sense of touch for the tangible sensations on our skin, etc. But all of that is based around the biochemistry of the nervous system, mostly the central nervous system, spine, and mostly obviously the brain, where we have the brain stem, which is more related to the instinctual and more in a way animal functions such as hunger, balancing when walking, and all those features. And then we have the famous cortex, neocortex, prefrontal cortex, the upper top part of the brain, which is having many responsibilities, the auditory, and there's also sensual stuff, the visual cortex in the back where the nerve, so many other things of the nervous system there, but especially the prefrontal cortex we associate with the thinking, the rational mind, and the planning capabilities, etc. But the mind, bottom line, associated with the nervous system of the individual. So that in the Western perspective.
So the mind is an organ activity of brain and nervous system that creates an experience that is mind. Or how would
What do you mean the mind is an organ activity? From the Western perspective, it's a biochemical phenomenon. So most of the scientific community comes from this objectifying materialistic perspective. So from that quantifying scientific experiment research, all these inner phenomenon as we experience them are in a way not even real. They are just a reflection, a mirroring of the primary thing, which is the biochemical process, which is this transmission of the nervous impulse via the neuron and its axon and the whole biochemistry and the also electromagnetic distribution of those impulses in the physical organ of the brain, of the nervous system. So from a modern objective scientific perspective, the mind basically gets reduced to the brain. And that's it, full stop. Everything else is basically just like an illusion, a kind of a story, a reflection, a secondary phenomenon on the inside. But that is what I was studying in my 20s when I researched Ken Wilber's integral theory and was writing my master's thesis on exactly that topic, to bring the objective outer world of the brain together with the inner, internal, subjective experience of my mind. So the mind is in a way the inner experience of the outer organ of the physical brain. And integral approaches, as the one of Ken Wilber, try to balance between those two different worldviews, which are usually antagonistically opposing each other and fighting for their meaning and interpretation of what does it mean. So from a scientific perspective, the mind is actually just some inner weird phenomenon of the brain, which has the priority, the outer objective organ, as you call it.
the Eastern school of spirituality brings an addition to our idea of conscious mind and subconscious mind. It is witnessing consciousness. It is the ability to witness. Can you talk a little bit about that, which is not present in the Western understanding of mind?
Yes, so from an Eastern or Asian perspective, in the contemplative traditions of Asia and the West as well, we find this recommendation to observe, to be consciously aware, to be present with, or even to witness all the phenomena which are arising. So, in a simplified, short explanation, we can describe two different levels of this witnessing awareness. So, on a basic level, we can see, similar of what I described before, how the conscious mind becomes aware of sensory input, sensations, and the conscious mind can become aware of subconscious tendencies, bringing conscious awareness to usually subconscious habits, patterns, etc. So that would be very much on the individual level of witnessing. In a way, one instance, one part of my mind witnessing other phenomenon happening in the sensory perceptions, as well as in other compartments, other areas of the mind. So, an individualized witnessing, I become aware of other stuff inside of myself. So, that individual witnessing is similar but not the same than what we would call the universal witness consciousness. So, going beyond the individual into what we could call cosmic awareness. Um, for that, we need to understand that consciousness, from a contemplative Eastern perspective, is not just an individual phenomenon of the brain. Because, as discussed from a Western scientific perspective, the mind, the conscious mind, the human consciousness is very much limited to the brain. It's confined by my individual nervous system. So it's a way, in a way, separating, isolating, individualizing, narrow perspective of consciousness in the Western scientific worldview. So for this Eastern and contemplative perspective, we need to extend our understanding of consciousness and see that awareness is a universal phenomenon. And first of all, we could say it's the same awareness in you and in me. That would be, in a way, then intersubjective. We can relate to our shared experiences or similar experiences of the same phenomenon. We can communicate about that in our intersubjective conversation. But beyond just you're a conscious being, I'm a conscious human being, there are a variety of lineages in the Eastern world and also in the Western contemplative field, which see consciousness as a universal phenomenon, in a way, actually, as the essence, the substratum, the core of existence. So then it's not only that animals are also conscious, maybe less conscious, less thinking, reasoning ability than human beings, but still they also have a perception. They receive sensory input. So from that level, they are consciously aware of what is happening in their surroundings. But they would go as far as saying that also a stone, a rock, a molecule, an atom has a conscious awareness. So that is a more far out radical suggestion, but we can see that the protons are relating to the electrons, and there is some awareness between them on a proto level, on a very, very basic level. So that's an extended understanding of consciousness as a universal phenomenon. And then this universal witnessing awareness becomes aware of pure existence. And this is where the yogic journey goes deeper. So that was our short but sweet exploration of The wonderlands of consciousness, both from a Western and from an Eastern perspective.
This was Wisdom in Motion with the Akasha family. Keep on shining in the spirit of yoga.
All the best to you.